Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be matchmaking after the UFC Baku card this weekend. Starting off with the winner of the main event, I've got Khalil Rountree. Scheduling-wise, it was really difficult to find him a good opponent, as I expected Yuri and Olberg will probably fight for the title shot at maybe like a UFC 320 to see who faces Ankalaev next. And I would also expect that Dominic Reyes will probably want to get straight back in there because he took no damage in the UFC 314 matchup against Nikita Krylov. I almost said Anthony Smith there. And the other thing is we can't give Khalil anyone outside of the top 5, as Jamahal Hill was just ranked number 4, and I bet he'll take that position. So he can't fight like a Rakic or someone like that who's like number 6 or number 7. So I put him against Jan Blachowicz. I think after Jan's last fight against Carlos Olberg, took a little bit of damage on the legs, not too much, but I don't think he's itching to get back in there. Like, I don't think he's looking for a quick turnaround against like a Volkan Ozdemir. And he shouldn't take these matchups that are really far below him in the division, because both of his last 2 losses have been like split decision type losses. So he's still right up there in terms of the light heavyweight division. And he also poses a problem for Khalil that Jamahal wouldn't. Jamal's more of like a plottier guy, which Jan Blachowicz is, but Jamahal doesn't check leg kicks. He doesn't have the most clean defense. And Jan Blachowicz, really high guard, very defensively sound, best leg kick defense in the game. And he's a lot more built than Jamahal, even though he's probably similar size than him. He carries a lot more muscle and size than Jamahal. And I think that this would just be a perfect style matchup to see where Khalil is in his career. Because although we can see that win against Jamahal and be like, oh, he's back, he's looking really good, Jamahal Hill didn't have the cleanest game plan going up against Khalil, and I think stylistically that's not the hardest matchup for Khalil, whereas I think Blachowicz would be the most difficult style we could give against Khalil. And I would like to see the explosive Muay Thai be tested against someone who's got some really good power and some really good technique and a crafty guy. So I think that this would be the perfect matchup that they could make. Moving on to the loser of the main event, I've put him against Azamat Murzakanov. If I was Hill, I would be taking 10-ish months off as he took a lot of damage, but I doubt he'll feel the same way. After he got KO'd by Pereira, he was itching to jump straight back into it 12 weeks later against Khalil. Pulled out due to an injury and then ended up getting matched up with Yuri at UFC 311. And then after getting KO'd by Yuri, he wanted to jump in 3 months later against Khalil Rountree. So I honestly think he'll do much the same, and I don't think that he's going to pull out due to injury. So I think he'll probably come in November or December in like a fight night main event, likely in the Apex if he's fighting Azamat Murzakanov. And I think there's no better opponent for Jamahal Hill to come back against, because I always think that Jamahal Hill's a good counter grappler, but there's no grapplers in the light heavyweight division, so it's not like we can give him that there. And I think the only reason we can really give Jamahal Hill this sort of matchup is just because Azamat's been calling for a main event fight, but literally no one's going to be available for that. If you look at the light heavyweight rankings, most people are matched up, or they're just not going to be available schedule-wise for Azamat. But I think that Jamahal Hill will do like a 4 or 5 months turnaround, so this is sort of the perfect opponent to give Azamat. And even if Jamahal Hill wants 4, 5, 6 months, I bet you could convince Azamat to wait around for that, just because I think he would have to fight like prelims 3-rounder if he doesn't get this Jamahal Hill fight. So I think that they would be able to convince Azamat to take an extra couple of months off. Even then, it's just giving him more time to develop a training plan against Jamahal Hill, and I think he would definitely take that fight. I think Jamahal Hill would probably think he's got an advantage in the striking, just because Azamat's not a big kicker, fights mostly out of the boxing, and he's a lot shorter than Jamahal Hill. So I think he will think that he can win this fight against Azamat Murzakanov. And Azamat doesn't pose the same threats that a lot of the opponents in the top 10 do against a guy like Jamahal Hill. He's not like the most physically imposing fighter, and he's not got the best kicks. He's not the biggest wrestler. So he's sort of got like a one-dimensional style. But in saying that, I think he smokes Jamahal Hill. Moving on to the winner of the co-main event, though, we have Rafael Fiziev. I have matched him up against the winner of Dariush versus Moicano. I don't really usually like giving these fighters, like, if this guy wins, give him this guy. But this does make sense, The UFC 317 is literally this week, so the timeline couldn't be better. And it's in the feature fight of that bout, so you can tell that these are two bigger names. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter who wins that fight. Because if Dariush wins that fight, the UFC is not going to want to give that less hype older guy someone who's ahead of him in the rankings when he's got KO'd in his last two fights. And Renato Moicano, although he's a pretty decent star in the lightweight division, I don't think the UFC are going to try push him up as well, because he's already got a loss against Islam Makhachev literally in his last fight out. And they've got the opportunity to give him Rafael Fiziev, who he's got a loss to. So I think that Renato would be happy to take this fight, and he will want to get that rematch back against Fiziev. I also think Fiziev should fight a grappler. He hasn't really proved himself against the highest level of grappling. He has fought against Gramrot, but he got injured in that second round with a knee injury, so we didn't really see how he stacks up against these good grapplers. And scheduling-wise, it works perfectly. I don't want to give Fiziev an opponent that's below him, as he's done some favors with the UFC with a quick turnaround against Ignacio Bahamondes after making a short turners fight against Justin Gaethje. So I think that the UFC should do him a favor and give him someone that's slightly ahead of him in the rankings, and no better than one of these two opponents. Moving on to the loser of the co-main event, we've got Ignacio Bahamondes. I have matched him up against Nazim Sadikov. I feel like since he only just got into the rankings with a win against Jalen Turner, who's now retired, he should probably defend his ranking. And scheduling-wise, it's perfect to give him someone who's unbeaten, who's on an unbeaten streak in the lightweight division, and who sort of deserves an opportunity into the rankings. Nazim Sadikov would be a great fight for Bahamondes. Even though Nazim hasn't faced like an opponent like a Carlos Diego Ferreira, someone who's like just outside of those rankings to give him that shot in the rankings, I don't think he needs to fight that sort of what's the word for it? That sort of gatekeep matchup, just because he's 5-1, being one draw only and 5 wins, and all of those against not like the highest level opponent, but some good guys like a Nicholas Motta or a Vyacheslav Borshev. So I think it would be good to give him a ranked opponent. He's 31 years old. We shouldn't be slow playing his career. And the other thing is that we got to reward these guys that are on 5-fight winning streaks, who are also getting bonuses. I'm pretty sure he's had 6 fights in the UFC and 4 bonuses. So we're looking at a guy that's doing so much for the company, putting up some amazing fights. So he should get a shot up in the rankings. He's a little bit of an older guy, so an older unranked guy. So let's give him his shot. And tell me you wouldn't want to see this fight. This would be literally such an electric fight. It would be 2 really fast strikers from really good technical gyms going in a 3-round war. And we just need this matchup. I don't need a fun fighter like Sadikov to go on like a 7-fight winning streak, beating like a Ludovic Klein in his next fight. I think he deserves a top 15 ranked matchup. He looks really clean in all of his fights. So moving on to the winner of the feature fight, we have Curtis Blades. I've matched him up with Waldo Cortez Acosta. I know scheduling-wise this may seem a little bit off because Curtis Blades just tore his MCL, so he'll likely need like 6 to 9 months off. But the thing is that no one's rushing to see Waldo return in the UFC. I think Waldo needs to improve his game to beat a guy like Blades, just because he made it so close with Spivak. And Blades shouldn't get anyone above him. He fought unranked Rizvan Kuniev, and everyone above him has not fought since literally last year. So they need to get a fight in before the end of the year, and I don't want them waiting 9 months for a Curtis Blades matchup. Another thing is that one of these guys, if they fight, can be removed from like a title eliminator type matchup, just because neither of these guys are the most fun, most talkative fighters. Like, they're not going to bring a single pay-per-view sale to a matchup with Tom Aspinall. So let's get one of these guys 6 steps away from the title shot. And then if one of these guys wins, you can still deny them at the title shot. If you rank them up with like let's say Curtis Blades gets a Volkov rematch, and then Waldo is actually fighting Sergey Spivak, I'm pretty sure. At least I think that's been rumored. So even whoever the loser of that matchup is, I think that they should fight Curtis Blades, and I think that Waldo would be that loser. Just because Curtis is going to be out for ages, and I don't want someone to just be sitting on the sidelines unless it's Waldo. And we need to hold both of these guys back as long as possible from the title shot. So, moving on to the loser of the feature fight, we've got Rizvan Kuniev. I wanted to give Rizvan another top 15 fighter, as he did look okay. He looked better than some of these top 15 ranked guys. And I wanted to give him a striker, so let's rule out like the Spivaks and the Ty Buras of the division. And also someone to make his name off, just because he's got some slick striking. He would be a decently fun guy to watch. And who's better to give him than an artificially top 15 fighter who loves striking, can't grapple, Tai Tuivasa. Ty's not fought for, it feels like, years, so this is like the only fight we can give him. And Rizvan showed some really good boxing against Curtis Blades, and we can't give Tai Tuivasa another guy that's just going to grapple him, because then it sort of means nothing if someone out-grapples Tai Tuivasa to a win. It's sort of like beating CM Punk. So, I think that this is a no-brainer. Put this fight together. They both like their striking, and they both look like they could make middleweight if they got on that light and easy or Jenny Craig type diet. So it's a mirror matchup, perfect fight. And whoever loses gets cut from the UFC. So let's book this fight. Moving on to the fourth fight up, Miktabek Orolbai. I would be putting him against Nasrat Hakparast. In the 155-pound division, we can't just keep giving him catchweight bouts, so he has to make 155. And hopefully he wins this one, because Nasrat's on a 5-fight winning streak, so he deserves at least an opponent just before being offered a top 15 guy, or just a top 15 shot, but I don't think he deserves that. And it honestly needs to be an opponent that he will likely lose against, just because his last 2 wins in his win streak have been like brutal robberies. Not so much the Esteban Ribovic fight, but that Jared Gordon fight was literally like a brutal robbery. So we can't have this guy on a 5-fight winning streak with the last 2 fights being robberies. We have to put him against Orolbai, get him demolished, let Orolbai get the name off him, and make 155. Because we can't give Orolbai a shot in the rankings yet, just because he lost his the fight before last against Roundbetsky, and now he fought Tofiq Musayev, who wasn't even in the UFC, and he didn't make 155. So we have to give him someone just outside that rankings, and Nasrat's the guy to give him. Nasrat fought recently, took tons of damage against Esteban Ribovic, so he's probably looking to come in maybe at the end of the year. So it would be good to match these two up. I think fighting someone who's a really well-rounded fighter for Nasrat might give him a bit of trouble, so we would be able to get his win streak snapped. And both of these guys got a cinder block for a chin, so it'll be a really fun, scrappy fight if Nasrat can keep her on the feet. And I would like to see Orolbai fight someone who's actually a really high-level striker. Moving on to the guy that Orolbai just beat in the first round by a Kimura, we've got Tofiq Musayev. I've matched him up with Markel Medeiros. Pardon me. Tofiq had a really underwhelming performance against Orolbai. He got finished in the first round. He literally defended one takedown, looked fantastic when he defended that one takedown, and then got taken down every time at will. So let's put him against someone who's sort of like bottom barrel in the lightweight division, but still a prospect. I didn't want to give him like someone who's like bottom level in the lightweight division, but also not a prospect. So, and I also didn't want to just give him like a Fares Ziyam to just watch him get destroyed. I want to give him a little chance to have a shot at a career in the UFC. So I think you should get someone who's like really low down, but still a good fighter, so we can learn something about both of these guys, no matter who wins or loses. So scheduling wise, it works. Medeiros fought on the UFC 317 card, and Medeiros is still a very good prospect. So if Tofiq loses, we at least, pardon me, I've got the hiccups now. At least we get to get a name off. At least we get to make a name off Tofiq Musayev if Markel Medeiros wins this one. Moving on to Nicholas Motta. I have moved him down to the featherweight division. He has no reason to be up at lightweight. And I've matched him up with Julian Juicy J. Arosa. I swear all the featherweights are still going to dwarf him, so he literally has to move down. But he 100%, there's no better opponent to move him down against than Juicy J. It'd be a really fun fight. Both guys would go to war with each other. We would see likely a 3-round scrap, as Juicy J doesn't have the most power in the world. So it would be a really fun fight. I think everyone would like to see it. And this would be like a good fight to throw on a prelims of some sort of fight night card. Moving on to Tagira Ulanbekov, I'm just rebooking him with Kyoji Horiguchi. Tagira on paper deserves a ranked opponent, but his performances really haven't supported that. I thought it was such a close fight against Azat Maxim. I don't think he should have been giving Azat that close of a fight. And also the entire ranked flyweight division is matched up, and I don't want him waiting until like March next year before getting a matchup with like an Alex Perez after he beats Steve Erceg. So like, I don't want to give him these matchups in like 10 months from now, so let's rebook him against Kyoji Horiguchi. After seeing that performance against Maxim, I think Horiguchi beats Tagira Ulanbekov, so... And Horiguchi still holds a name in the UFC just because he was pretty good. I think he was like 5-1 in the UFC before he retired, before he moved to all of those other promotions. So I think this would be a good fight to put up. Horiguchi will probably beat Ulanbekov, so it's nice to get Ulanbekov moving down those rankings. And I think you just couldn't give the only other guy who's not matched up in the flyweight division that's ranked, which is Manel Cap. You can't give Manel Cap Ulanbekov. So Ulanbekov would get demolished by Manel Cap, like no doubt about it. So he's not looked improved in any of his last few fights, so I'm going to watch him against someone who's elite, but not in the rankings. Moving on to Tagia's opponent, Azat Maxim. I've put him against Alan Nascimento. Alan's been out of the sport for years. He looked really good against Rafael Fiziev a couple of weeks ago. So let's give a grappler-on-grappler matchup. And Nascimento probably wants to be active. He's not that far out of the top 15, so it would be good to see him versing a really good prospect, not Rafael Fiziev. Rafael's been around for a while. We know he's not that top 10 level guy, so... And Maxim could be in the future, so it would be nice to see him against him. And Maxim's gotten these really hard last fights, like against Charles Johnson and Tagira Ulanbekov. One after the other, both of the guys were ranked at the time of when he faced them, so it's just a bit of a no-brainer to throw him against someone who's not that same level of opponent that Tagira is, or that Charles Johnson is. So he needs one or two unranked fighters to get his mojo back, and then we can start throwing in the Ramzan Temirovs of the divisions. And it'd be nice to see the wrestling of Maxim against a good grappler like Nascimento. And I don't want them to just give him another, like, let's say Temirov loses against Almabayev, or Almabayev loses against Temirov, or Asakura even, let's say he beats Tim Elliott. Let's say any of those matchups, I don't want to see it for Azat Maxim. We need to see him against someone unranked so he doesn't just get demolished. But that's all of the matchups I was going to make for this card. Let me know what you think of them in the comment section below. Should Tagira Ulanbekov get Manel Cap? Let me know. And as always, like and subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next video. All of you stay safe and peace. I'll catch you later. Bye.